Christ's crucifixion was a terrible night for all the apostles. They all had a bad night that night. But it was an especially bad night for two of them. The night of Christ's crucifixion was an awful night for Peter, and it was an awful night for Judas. On that night of Christ's crucifixion, both of them acted abominably. Both of them made big mistakes. They both sought themselves, and they both were selfish. Judas, of course, he sinned in the pursuit of self-interest, and so did Peter. And both were struck with remorse. We all heard the tale many times of Peter weeping bitterly after he denied Christ 3 times to save his skin. And we all think of the awful account of Judas running back to the priest to see if they wouldn't take the money back. Remember that? Here, take the money back. I made a mistake. This should never have been done. And they say, what is that to us? That's your money. This is done. Blood's on your hands. They both were racked with remorse. But the difference between the two of them, they were both struck with remorse for their sin. But one went and hung himself on a lonely tree, and the other found himself the next morning running to the tomb in hope. One ended up being in despair. The other ended up with hope. And, God disciplines us. He strikes us to test our souls, to see where we stand with Him. How well do you take the discipline of God? How well do you take punishment? Have you pursued the world and its ways of late? I'm sure you have. I have. And anytime I pursue the world and its ways, I always get punished for it. Every time. And sometimes the punishment is harsh, and it's difficult, and I don't enjoy it. But how do you respond to that? Do you say, well, enough? And you push God off? Or do you become desperate for Him? Do you pine for Him and long for Him? Are you like David in Psalm 51 who says, restore unto me the joy of thy salvation. Create in me a clean heart. I want to be washed pure again. I don't like this feeling. I don't like this awkwardness and this distance between me and you, Lord. Restore me. How you receive this discipline will betray the true opinion, your true opinion of the discipliner. Just want to read the conclusion of the story really quickly. It's not very long. It's kind of peculiar too. Just to see how David's soul was tried and how God was pleased with what he found. Look at verse 8 in chapter 21. I won't be reading but a few verses here. It said, and David said to God, I have sinned greatly, and that I have done this thing. But now, please take away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. And the Lord spoke to Gad, David's seer, saying, his prophet, saying, go and speak to David, saying, thus says the Lord, I offer you 3 things. Choose for yourself one of them, that I may do it to you. So Gad came to David and said to him, thus says the Lord, take for yourself either 3 years of famine, or 3 months to be swept away before your foes, your enemies, while the sword of your enemies overtakes you, or else 3 days of the sword of the Lord, even pestilence in the land, and the angel of the Lord destroying throughout all the territory of Israel. Now therefore consider what answer I shall return to him who sent me. I would have said, is there a fourth? But he knew that. And David said to Gad, I am in great distress. Please let me fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are very great. But do not let me fall into the hand of man. And I'll end right there. Do you see what it shows that he took the disciplines. He knew he was going to get punished for it. He said he acted very foolishly. And when Gad gave him 3, it's very interesting for God to say, okay, I'll let you choose your punishment. You can either, take some famine. You don't know how much that's going to cost you. I'll let your foes gain some victories over you. These people that you've previously defeated, you're going to have to retreat some of the land you got. Or you can take punishment directly from me. Which one do you want? What does David do? David says, I want to be punished by you, Lord. I trust you. I know I've earned this punishment, but I know you're just. I know you're right. And I know I know you love me. And I know you love this country. So I choose for me and for my entire country, your discipline, your hand. And God was pleased with that. He gave him punishment, but he cut it short. Just like some of you Parents might say, well, you're going to get 10 spankings and only get 8 or 7. That's how God is. He abated it beforehand. It's a cool story. I encourage you to read ahead. It's about Ornan and the threshing floor and all that. But remember this thing in closing. With God as your wall of protection, which He is today, you have no fear of any enemy, because there's no way that God, if He's your wall of protection, that wall is going to crumble. There's no chance of anybody scaling that wall. There's no chance of anybody breaking through that wall. That wall protects you from everything. But here's the big problem, like I started in the beginning. If God is your wall of protection, and nobody can harm you from without, that only goes to the conclusion that the only harm you can have is from within. And just as David found that his greatest opponent was going to be himself, same with you. And if you find yourself today with God as your protector, you're under His wing. And because of that, the only thing you have to fear today is yourself. And so I pray that before you go about endeavoring to do anything on His behalf or anything else in your life, you must come to a conclusion about yourself. You must see yourself for how you are. A wretch, desperate, able to sin. And you must have the chief energies of your life going towards sanctification, bringing yourself under control through the ministry of the Holy Spirit. It's really the chief thing that you can do, because you have nothing to fear from Satan. You have nothing to fear from anything else here in the world. You don't have to fear death. You don't have to fear disease. None of it. Nothing can come between you and the Lord. The only thing you have to fear is yourself. Let's pray.